Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another edition of Addressing Military Culture. We thank you all for chiming in on this wonderful Wednesday morning. We have a sensitive topic that we're talking about today, and we know just this disclaimer that the information that we're going to share and what we're going to talk about might be a little bit of stressful, even cause triggers, may have bring about some situationalness in what you have experienced or whether you know of someone that has. That is not our intent. Our intent is to carry this conversation to a level of maybe we can get some solution and answers. And if it doesn't begin with us sitting at the table discussing these things, where can we look forward to go in the future? There's been a lot of changes and things that have happened over the course of, I guess, the last past couple of months in relationship to this topic we're talking about. And we're talking about sexual harassment in the military. And all of my vets that I have on the show with me today, they are in their comfort zone with discussing this, and they feel like we're going to make strides to that. So I've invited active, and I've also wanted to say as well, I have invited active and veteran women service members to come on and give their perspective and add their content to this discussion. I do feel is very important, especially in the light of what we're talking about. For most of them, they could not come with work related issues and clients and businesses because of the time that we're airing this. But I do want to know for those that catch us in the hashtag replay that they were invited. I have invited them. We're going to have a couple that's going to be on, some that's going to be on their way. So we want to hear their perspective so we can understand that the sensitive nature of this topic that we're going to discuss today, we definitely want to hear their voice. Now, since I've got all the legal and the disclaimers out the way, let's get it started. The stage, I got a wonderful group of veterans here with me today. As always, I got my man Charleston, U.S. Air Force vet, Charleston Gaines. How are you this morning, man?
I'm good. Good morning. I'm excited to talk about this topic. This is something that really has impacted me and most everyone that I know for most of our lives, right? It's not
Yes.
new,
It's not
but
new, but it's not new to, but we're gonna get it. We're gonna get into it. And I did get a female perspective. I got a new branch of the military that is joining us today. Michelle Keys, U.S. Naval. So we got the Navy on board with us today, and I'm so excited to have Michelle on. Not just for the being in another branch of services, we're trying to get the four branches on, but her bringing the female perspective from a personal nature as well. She's a confident and she feels good in sharing some of her story. And she definitely saw this as a win-win when she wanted to be a part of this conversation. And so I'm glad to have her here. Yes, I got my Marine buddy here, Rob. I got to get my man Rob in. Rob, good morning, sir. How are you? How you doing this morning, man?
Good morning, Carl.
All right. And of course, rounding it out last, but definitely not least, my OG friend, U.S. Air Force vet, Jeff Clark. And good morning, good morning, Sam. Yeah, you the OG. You my OG friend. I gotta holler at you for being my OG friend, man. So, guys, let's get it started, man. Let's get it started. I had and let's go around the room a little bit first. We talk about this because I know it's a lot that we could share, and it's a lot that we probably need to go into um, and discussing it, and all of us got some kind of personal knowledge of this. Is not firsthand, more so we've experienced it. Either we have, or we know someone have, or somewhere along the spectrum. That's why I kind of felt confident in putting this together. But I really want to know. We're talking about uh, the specialists who this law is passed for. And we're talking about the national. We're talking about the National Defense Authorization Act. Right? This is what's really spearheading this conversation. And in this act, President Biden, sorry, has signed into law this act based upon making sexual harassment a criminal offense in the military. Now, when you look at that and you say, "Man, how can that not be right?" You look at the culture because that's what we address the military culture. When you look at the culture, and so you say, how in the world can that not be a act? But where it was pushed off, and just to give credit to how this began, Vanessa Guillén, she was a 20-year-old soldier at Fort Hood, I'm sorry, in Texas, Killeen, Texas. She disappeared on April 22nd, 2020. And shortly after that disappearance, shortly after that, she disappeared after telling her mom that she had been sexually harassed by a fellow soldier. She went missing for about 6 weeks, and on June 30th, they found her remains close to a river there in Bell County, Texas. And a little bit, maybe hours or so after that, finding her body, they arrested Ian Robinson, who was believed to have been Vanessa's killer. Well, they went to arrest him. I'm sorry, believed to be her killer, and he shot himself. So this is where we get into the storyline of where we're going with this and how this Defense Act came into place. But I just want to ask you guys questions, and I'll go around the realm here because I don't want to spend too much time on facilitating part of this. I want to hear you guys' a point of view on this. My biggest question that I asked, and I shared it with you guys before we started, and this is simply this, and we actually can really carry the discussion on this, whichever direction you want to take this. Why did it take the military so long? And Charleston, I'll let you begin to chime in on that.
Well, for me, there are a couple basic parts of it are pretty obvious. Um, People like when you know people, when you're friends with people that have committed these offenses, you want to protect them. It's a good old boy network. We want to protect them. Not only that, but it's also just it's rape culture. It's the idea that being able to harass people, being whether men harassing women, whatever, is a sign of power. It strokes your ego, and so what happens is there's a culture where it's celebrated. There's a culture where you want to hook up as much as you can and get away with whatever you can. And so it's not about something that there's an obvious perpetrator and victim, like if I steal your wallet. Well, nobody wants their wallet stolen from them. But when it's something that's celebrated, nobody wants to punish their friends.
Yeah, I could definitely agree with that, and definitely, and I look at it from a perspective of being African American in the military, right? Definitely not going to make this out of a racial thing, and don't want to do that. But I am going to highlight some of the obviouses, as my kids would tell me. Yeah, that's Captain Obvious, so it definitely needs to be recognized. We all know that in the representation of who we are as black soldier men, we haven't really got a lot of the credit going way back. Uh, Women and minorities haven't got a lot of the credit for joining. Even some, I can remember when my uncle being in Vietnam, of how some of the Vietnam Americans were actually in the war fighting against their own country. Those kind of things wasn't highlighted. Uh, so there's always been this, yeah, we're fighting for God and country, but it has never been an embracement of those who are actually fighting for these standards. And in the essence of that, why did it take the military this long? We're talking about the sexual trauma part of it right now, and the sexual harassment and why it's taken this long for it to be not only just talked about, but action to be taken upon. And I do agree with you, Charles, in a lot of fact of that it has been hiding. It's been hiding, and some like your buddy, especially probably as when you were kids. If your buddy that you hung with did something wrong, I mean, you're what is like self-preservation. You're like, oh, don't tell him, or let's hide what happened. But we're talking about people's lives and the dramatic changes and the effects that have happened and that continue to happen to these ones that are serving our country. So, Michelle, I know you have a little bit of story that I'll let you share a little bit of your story and just tell me your take on why did it take the military so long, and what you feel comfortable with sharing? I want to hear from
So personally, I think that, it's taken so long is because, like, has been said before, is it's able to be hidden, and hidden in the terms of, oh, it was a joke. Oh, that's a female, if it happens to a female, and that's the only perspective I can give because I'm not a gentleman. Um, or, oh, they're being sensitive. That sensitive word is notorious for coming up in these type of conversations. I joined the Navy right out of high school. I lived in Pennsylvania, a small town, and left for boot camp. And there was things that happened in boot camp with the males and the female new sailors. But my very first day checking into my command was almost predominantly male. It was a submariner command. And my first conversation or welcome by my LPO was, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm all excited." And I'm thinking it's like a cool question. And I'm just reciting off, like, I'm the oldest girl, six other females, a first time away from home. Like, I'm just going into this. And he's like, "No, no, no, no. Why are you here? You're supposed to be barefoot, pregnant, and in my kitchen making me a sandwich."
Wow.
And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm not old enough right now to have a baby, but thank you." And I'm a little hard headed, so we're gonna have a grand old time here, And I went about my business, and I wasn't sure how to take that. I was young, I was in a foreign country, and I also, this is my first duty station. I'm not sure what the heck I just signed up for, but I knew I needed to make a difference because, back home wasn't the best for me. So it is what it is. Um, and I just kept it kind of to myself, and I just try to see what was around, see what the environment was. And the semio, so the person who's responsible for ensuring a great climate environment, was my next person that invited all the females to come sit on Big Daddy's lap and tell them what we wanted for Christmas. And this was in front of officers. He would do this. And they thought it was funny. So my very first duty station, within a couple of weeks, that was how I was, introduced to the service. And I could have let that break me, but I chose to stay, and I served 20, and I became more involved. But I mean, the harassment didn't stop there. So yeah, it does make me question, why does it take so long? Because I
you.
don't
And
think
I thank you for.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I think it's a delay, but I just want to say I thank you for sharing that. But keep on, keep on. I definitely want to interrupt you.
But I just think that, it comes to this, the voices are out there, but we mute them at the command levels. And this unfortunate situation with Vanessa got the right attention from the right people, which kickstarted even more of an effort to make it get passed.
Yeah, and that has been. Did I go out? Did I go out? Yeah, okay. It's been a part of. Um, in and out. Come on. This is not the time. This is not the time. This is not the time. I apologize to all y'all are watching. I'm going in and out here. The service is killing me today. Uh, this is why I really chose the title, the topic at the bottom of the screen, and I put the epidemic, because it's past a problem. Uh, it's always been past a problem, but it's been so hiding. And I think now with the culture of social media and being able to get the message out, I read even an article when we were talking about Vanessa. They said within days of her disappearance, thousands and upon thousands of U.S. women's social service women, sorry, they posted from around the world and they shared on their social media.
It looks like we're losing Carl a little bit. Can the rest of you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll just kind of jump in and keep it moving, and we'll get Carl back when we get Carl back. But Rob, why don't you chime in and tell us kind of a little bit, why did it take so long for the military to get this passed?
Well, first and foremost, since I'm still getting paid by them on the 1st and 15th, I do not represent the United States Marine Corps. So I represent as Rob Spedden. What's sad is, so I was looking up stuff, and we're really focused in on Vanessa. Is anybody familiar with Lance Corporal Lauerbach in December of 2007?
I don't think so.
She was buried behind her baby's father house. She was an active duty Marine, and this was Camp Lejeune. And like I said, this is December of 2007 that they discovered her body. And we're talking about Vanessa, and I mean, we're talking about that's over a decade. I think the other issue that we have, and what I believe is, there's orders out there. I think, it's just kind of like what you deal with anything on the politics. There's orders out there. They just haven't been used before because, like, for us, we have what's called the PAC order, which is prohibited activities and conduct. I know sexual harassment is underneath that. I know, but it doesn't get the power that it should get. So now we got to make a whole new order on something that's already there. And that's why I said it's a lot of things that you have in politics. We have these new policies, and it's like, no, people just weren't, going after people. They were letting it hide down. Okay, well, the PAC order, we're going to worry about hazing, or we're going to worry about this. So it has been out there, and I think that it had to, get its own name. So it feels like we're doing something. But it's not going to change anything unless we enforce it. I mean, I'm looking at this survey, and they said 25% of active duty say they've been harassed. It's a survey. How many people? I mean, I can't believe it's only 25%. As many females have said stuff to me, there's no way. Yeah. And then luckily in the Marine Corps, from the time I came in to now, we stopped saying WM because WM stood for walking mattress. That was just what was said. I mean, thankfully, we've gone into female Marines. We're really starting to fight for a Marine is a Marine is a Marine. But until some of those guys go, it's still a culture out there.
I think it goes back to what Charleston said, and I think we got Carl back, but and I'll kind of bounce back and forth between the facilitating here.
No, man, I appreciate it, man. I think somebody in New Jersey is mad we having this discussion.
Yeah.
My thing, like, because I'm like my whole like Wi-Fi, my iPad, everything shut down. Like somebody's angry in New Jersey, but we're gonna have this discussion anyway, even if we have to come back and do part 2. I appreciate that, Jeff, for taking over for me, man. I appreciate that, and I didn't hear the last part of it, but I was just applauding the actions and what Rob said. I'll kind of piggyback on that. It seems that the military have for so many years, and bear in mind that we're having this discussion, guys. I just want to let those know that are watching us live in the audience. We're not having this discussion from a place that we don't know what we're talking about. I don't indulge in conversations that I have any experience in or don't know what I'm talking about because I can't bring anything to that conversation. What I can bring is to the fact of that, and I think it was mentioned in the comments, even though we're talking about the sexual harassment part of it, but we're really talking about the essence of how is this culture, because this is the reason why we began this show. We're addressing the military culture, and addressing it, there are some positives and there are some negatives. Just if you address and evaluate your own self and your own behavior, there's some good things about you and there's some bad things about you, and those things have to be met at a plateau of whether I'm going to make a change, I'm going to do it different, or I'm going to stay in the same boat. And we're at a point of where now you cannot hide behind this anymore. And regardless of whether you call it the Good Old Boy Network, the clicks, I mean, whatever title that you want to give it, the things that are happening are wrong, and they're detrimental to what's stopping us from moving forward. And if we don't have that ability to be open with each other, honest with each other, and talk about that, then we're gonna be in trouble with that. And joining me now, I got Heather in. Heather, Charleston, you can do the honors because Heather, we have not officially met, but I just want to chime in. I want many people to chime in on as possible. So, Jeff, if I go in and out, anybody, just take the flow for me.
I got you, brother.
All right. Well, I'll say this about Heather. She's absolutely amazing. She's currently active duty, tech sergeant, United States Air Force E6, and I'm grateful to have you here, Heather. So, I think So our first question is, why did it take so long for sexual harassment to be added as a crime in the UCMJ?
That's obviously a very good question. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather. I think I obviously read the studies and the percentages of victims that would come forward and speak after these things happen, and then as well as whenever men or women that offended being prosecuted, it's less than 13% last year. So when you see percentages like that, for me as a victim, I was not willing to get on a stand and relive that and go through that for knowing that there was a high likelihood that this person was going to walk away. Sorry, my 3-year-old son's in the background. Knowing that he could walk away or not face anything. Unfortunately, my daughter's biological father was accused of sexual harassment and chose not to fight it and opted to just get kicked out of the military. And the victim agreed. That way she didn't have to work with him any longer. And he got out of the military scotch-free. He had a other than honorable discharge. 6 months later, had it upgraded to honorable. Now has all of his benefits. So when you see things like that, for me, it was extremely traumatizing. And I was willing to do anything to get away from it. Granted, I was young and didn't realize how to get away from it or how to properly handle everything. But I think as a whole, the military, while they do not still condone it, they also don't really do anything to the people that are accused of these things. So you are no action is an action, and I think that's where we were for a long time, and I'm grateful that now it's being brought to light, and I'm grateful now that things are happening. But I think we have a long way to still go with this, because until the Vanessa Guillén case, while we said that our command didn't weigh in on these investigations, they absolutely still knew about it. And as a female, I could walk into a room and knew what was going on by the looks or the atmosphere that I would get or the talking that would stop. So I didn't believe that it was ever an unbiased investigation or unbiased leadership when it came to those things.
Carl, you there? Or are you frozen again?
Sorry.
I think you might be frozen again, so we'll keep it moving. Hey, so I'll just throw my little 2 cents in there too before we kind of keep it moving a little bit. But I think there's been a bit of a culture problem, from going back to when they said, homosexuals in the military can now serve openly. It still took them quite a bit of time to get the UCMJ actually updated. Then there was a lot of open questions. I just don't think policy moves fast enough for what people want to say. And I think it's going to take getting some old heads and some old mantras out of the military before these things can change. And we have to be okay with telling the public of the United States that the military isn't full of angels. For the longest time, we've said the military is the elite. These guys are the sharpest. Every time you see a picture of a Marine on TV, they're skinny, tight, tucked in, looking perfect. Couldn't be flawless. and that's the image we've portrayed. And we've never been able to admit we have flaws. We have problems within our ranks. Not everybody who joins the military is, a patron saint of the church. We have some bad apples, and there's nothing wrong with that, because people join the military and it changes their lives. But for some people, it doesn't. Some people, it gives them another opportunity. And we just haven't came to the truth of that and said, we got some bad apples here. We got to change the culture. We got to change the policies. We got to be tougher on things. We need braver and more bold and dynamic leaders that say this is not acceptable at all. And saying there's a zero tolerance is different than, pushing a zero tolerance policy. I've had plenty of commanders tell me there's a zero tolerance. We have zero tolerance. It's a zero tolerance policy. That's the bottom line. Well, but you don't back it up. And what are you afraid of? And it goes back to what Charleston said. It's the good old boy club. Why is it taking Congress? It takes Congress to change the UCMJ. They forced Biden to do something. Now, I'm not trying to get political, but Congress in December said, you've got to do something to make this happen. You have to do something. A bill has to be written. Executive order has to be done. This has to be fixed. Now, I'm not defending Congress because it shouldn't have taken this long. But why is the UCMJ just now getting updated in 2022 for this issue? You got to get the old mantras out of the way. We have to come to the realization that there's truths in the military that we don't want to admit. And people cannot suffer the consequences of that any longer. It's not acceptable.
Can I just add something to that, though? Is the UCMJ is definitely there, while it's not up to date. But you have to have people want to uphold people to the UCMJ. Having an act, having a publication of rules, having this and having that, it's useless if you don't have people who will ensure that those things are being acted upon. It's just like what she just said. No action is an action.
Yeah.
With the UCMJ, rape is also not, supposed to happen. But let's get real. It happens. Absolutely. It happens way too many times because there's 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men.
Yeah.
Right. So while I hope that this act going forward is enacted upon.
I agree, because you can use Article 92 and Article 134 as catch-all articles to charge people with a lot of different misconducts. And I've done it myself. I've written Article 92 on plenty of paperwork, but I agree to what you're saying. It takes the people wearing, stars and birds on their shoulders to actually say, listen, this has got to happen. The good old boy club's got to die, go away, because we can write all the laws we want to, do all the UCMJ updates that we want to. It does, in fact, to your point, it takes bold and dynamic leaders, kind of like what I said, brave people to say, this has got to happen. And it comes down to, saving, waiting for their career. If I'm up for my first star, am I thinking twice about some of these things? You shouldn't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't at all. But is it happening? Let's be honest. It's happening.
And I think too, so when so many people are scared, this is bringing a bad eye to the service members and what they're doing for our great country. But it's not the victims who are bringing the shame upon the service. It's the people who are not enforcing that the bad people get out.
Yeah, they're not following core values. Every branch has core values. Yeah, every single one of them has core values. These people breaking these rules, they're not doing it.
I like what you said. It's as the United States military, we try to give this persona that we're the best of the best, and trying to uphold that obviously is a problem, because then you have these but situations it's zero tolerance, but this. So I think my husband and I were actually having this discussion 2 nights ago. I was heated about a topic, and while I am absolutely grateful that we're addressing this and the diversity and inclusion thing, if I'm having to teach you how to respect someone, whether it's their race or their gender or their orientation, you're already wrong. So if I have to teach you, okay, but the zero tolerance has to be a zero tolerance. And while we try to say that the brass and the stars need to be the ones that hold it accountable, at my level, the 160 people under me absolutely know it's a zero tolerance. I have not only verbalized that, I have enforced it. So I can only control what I can control. And like I said, if I'm teaching you how to treat someone, that's okay for a moment, because you're right. Not everyone joins the military is perfect. I understand that there are people that try to get out of different lifestyles, or they were raised differently than I was, which is fine. Those people can be taught, but if you're making a conscious decision to continue these acts, then that's where I can step in and I can hold the line and I can have the zero tolerance. Granted, there are some things that investigative processes have to take place, and that's fine. But the things that don't and aren't within my control, I'm making sure that it's known. So it sucks that it does take Congress to change the UCMJ, but the things that are in the UCMJ that I can control, I'm making sure that I'm able. And I'm only like a pin drop, right, in the entire Air Force. So it definitely feels like an endless battle sometimes.
Can I step in for a moment?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about, what would make a change. So another thing is, I think some of them needed to be on the streets recruiting. So I think it was 2013. She was pre-shipping to boot camp. So when they pre-ship to boot camp, I bring the parents in, have the discussion. Now, apparently as recruiters, we get taught how to answer all the hard-hitting questions, right? So we had just had the nudes shared all over the social media and everything else of the females in the Marine Corps. And there was different pages, and they were calling them wooks and all this stuff. And so the mom is sitting there as we get ready to ship to boot camp, and she's like, "Sergeant, how can you guarantee my daughter will not be harassed or assaulted?" How do I answer that question? But I think about it, like when these leaders are talking, I'm like, you just had to be in the streets with me. You just had to sit there in that chair next to me. Like, how do you answer? How do I tell this mom, look her in the eye? Like, in a weird way, I'd rather answer if your kid's going to die in combat. I'm trained for that.
Yeah.
But I'm not trained to say, how's your I don't know. And then stuff that my ex-wife has dealt with, where it's just like, come on now. And so it hits home. And I said, even when we did the pre-show, if you get into my closet, it's like Monica's closet. It is. I have done some things that are very regrettable, but that's kind of why I wanted to get on here, because the guys can sit there and say these females are just saying blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm in the showers with these guys, and I know what they do, and I know what they say. And should I have stepped up a long time ago? Yeah. But now as cultures change, and it shouldn't have changed, I'm stepping up more forward. Like, hey, is that really what we should be doing? Is that really the thing that needed to happen? But it was a shift in culture, because you stood up and it's like, oh, are you not this? You're not a male. You're not an alpha male. But I do like that we are changing things.
Yeah, you guys are covering some great things. And I'm just sitting here, for lack of a better term, enjoying the conversation. Because we're discussing the hard fact. Yeah. Am I disconnected again? And somebody don't want to hear me, right? Somebody is not trying to hear me today, and I'm really getting heated about it, right? I'm really getting heated about it.
Hey, we got you.
Yeah, Heather and Michelle, you guys have lambasted some great points, and I think about the military life and experience, right, of the sexual violence.
Okay. We'll keep it moving, Carl. We got you, man.
Come on. I'm about to bust my head right here. Like, all right. I think I'm being tapped in. I think someone's tapping in. But I just want to, hopefully I can get this out quickly. We experienced that, the men and the women who experienced that, and women more so that we're talking about now, we often have to live and work with these people who have committed these offenses. Like, right? And we don't have these companies where we can go to where, even though that's kind of hard as well in corporate, where we can go and say, I want to file an EEOC complaint because like this is going on. This dude is like, he's my commander, he's my CEO, what have you, and like this is what's going on. We saw it. I mean, we just saw it with the companies this past year, with so many that had to step down or facing charges. Even the governor of New York. I mean, we've got places where we can go to try to get that done. But a lot of times when this happens, and most of all of the times when this happens in the military, there are places in the UCMJ and those things that are supposed to be hard line. They're supposed to be, this is the zone. They're supposed to be that. But you have these service members that most of the time that they're under these ones who have committed these offenses. So in the essence of that, it's kind of like you had a ceiling, because here I am as an E4, E5, E3, and I got a staff sergeant here that may be committing this offense. So who do I go to? And then it's coming back to the chain of command is there, so you got to follow the chain of command. Well, excuse me, last I checked, he's part of the chain of command. So how can I get around that? Because we have that, and we don't have the options of leaving these jobs. We don't have the options of saying, oh man, this company sucks, I'm going to leave. Like, I don't have those options. So in essence of them taking so long to do that, I'll ring it around you guys and I'll let you guys talk, because it seems like nobody wants me to talk in this format. Where do we go from here on the basis of what you think? Now we've hit this point. We've gotten to this place and it's open forum, so to speak. But where do you think we going, and where do you think we need to go from this point? And you can bring it in your perspective any way that you want to bring it in. And I'll begin with the ladies, because I want to hear their perspective, because they add some greatness to this conversation, even though I can't get in it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Go ahead, Michelle. Kick us off.
Well, it's something you hit on something, and I know this is addressing military culture, but corporate is not any better. I was sexually harassed there too. And their solution is to tell the perpetrator, I guess, because he blatantly admitted he did it because he liked my alpha personality. He just had to stop, and that was the fix. And it's a trigger because it triggered me right back to the times in service. I went over my first duty station, but I mean, there were plenty more, and it does deal with a lot of what you said. You're in the chain of command. So I had a senior person. I suffer from migraines, and he used to tell me to come into his office so he could help me work out the migraine, with all intentions of what I knew he was talking about. And I would just walk away disgusted. So where do we go? I wish I had an answer for that, because, the conversations are great. I think that they're great to have. And as I've said behind the scenes, and I'll say it here too, is I commend Rob, because of him speaking up and saying, hey, I needed to change with the culture. I think it takes education. And I know, what Heather said was, we're all common, we can teach. You have to be open to learn. I think that sometimes we are taught the incorrect things. And I'm not saying sexual harassment, is something that's taught at home, but it might be. We don't know the dynamics. I mean, that's the great thing I'm learning in studying mental health, is we don't know the dynamics that are set up at someone else's home. And when they come into an environment where it is very diverse, and that can be based on race, and that can be based on sexuality, and that can be based on gender. The conversations are a great lead, but how many conversations do we need to have before people understand I shouldn't be talking to this other person like this? Because I have seen it on the flip side too. Women do sexually harass men, And it's just as mentally damaging that way as it is a male to, do a female, or, same sex is same sex. So that's a great question. I don't know where to, I wouldn't even know where to go with it.
I agree with everything you said. I think that for me, I had the situation, like the experience you spoke on, like where do I go, because it is someone in my chain of command. I was in Afghanistan. It was the master sergeant in charge of the 12-man team. We were outside the wire. I literally had nowhere to go. Unfortunately, I think that the education piece, while that recruiter question would have really got me, because the military trains people not to rape people. Like, you have to tell people not to rape people. What do you mean? I think for me, because I was 19, brand new to the base, I think the education piece should be, yes, we do not want people to sexually harass you, but we need to focus more on, if this happens to you, this is how you can handle it. Because I had no idea. I didn't want to tell my supervisor. I didn't have friends. I didn't know who to tell. I sat in my dorm room and cried. I did not know where to go. So the second time that this happened with the master sergeant in Afghanistan, when I got back stateside, conveniently, he ended up being my squad leader again. Him and the superintendent of the squadron, who was a senior master sergeant, were drinking buddies, and it was well known that they hung out together. My chief was being discharged for his gambling and debt problems. So I'm sitting there like, now where do I go? Who do I go to? Thankfully, I was the squeaky wheel, and I went to the group commander. I told my commander that I had a presentation at the group, and I called the group secretary. I was a little witty staff sergeant. I sneaked my way into his office and told him everything. I was like, I have nowhere to go. I don't know where to go to. I went to EO, and he found out, and now he showed up at my apartment and threatened me with my 4-month-old daughter. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do, but I'm not only scared for me, but my child. And I think having my daughter is the only reason that I continue to pursue it, because I thought I would, if she was in this position, I would want her to fight. And the only way she's going to learn is someone teaching her. And that's the only thing I could do. So I was the squeaky wheel. But to think that a 19-year-old Heather would have had to have done that to be heard, I would have never. And I didn't, obviously. So I think that the zero tolerance has to be a zero tolerance. The education piece, yes, we need to tell people what we allow and what we don't allow, but we also need to be realistic that these things are going to continue to happen, because you can't fix people's morals. You can't fix people. Putting just as much education into the mental health after something like this happens, the advocates for this, how to go about it, I think that also needs expanded on just as much as, hey, don't sexually harass somebody.
Carl,
Because
that's
while
a
we
whole
would love
nother
for it
show
not to
about
happen,
mental
it's
health.
going to continue to happen.
Yeah, Charleston, man.
I
I gotta bring it to you, man, because we're talking about something right up your alley, right?
yeah.
Zero. Let me touch on this quickly. Zero tolerance, right? I've heard that from a perspective. First, as a kid, growing up in the streets of Chicago, by the police that was patrolling my neighborhood, you had a zero tolerance for gangs and drug dealing, right? 90% of the time, I saw the cops taking the drug dealers' money and sending them on their way. Zero tolerance, right? I've heard this a lot of times in my life. I got in the military. I was told zero tolerance for horse playing, all of buffoonery, all of those things, all of the kind of like Hell Week initiations that I went through, throwing a towel over my head, beating me down in the shower, and trying to figure out who it was, and those kind of things. Those are just some of the things I've experienced in there. And I know that we don't want to take it that way, but I'm just saying this term, zero tolerance. Nothing was done, but I had my sergeants above me tell me we got zero tolerance for this kind of foolishness in the barracks with our soldiers. And here we go to a process of, even in corporate, we got zero tolerance for this sexual harassment, though my bosses are patting some of the female coworkers on the backside at the printer, and like, where they just wanted the guys, and you hear this talk. But I hear in every handbook that I've signed, in the employee handbook, that there's zero tolerance. for this kind of behavior. And here we are in the military with all of us experiencing these different angles of everything, and zero tolerance have been at the forefront of what we're going to. I don't want to hear that term anymore if we're not doing nothing concerning that term, because it's a slap in the face to all of us that has any sense to understand what zero tolerance means. Because to me, it's clear. I'm not having that. When I tell my kids when they was growing up, I don't have zero tolerance for you lying to me. I wasn't going to accept the little white lie. I wasn't going to accept them fudging the truth. I had no tolerance for that. So in the essence of that, Charles, you weigh in. Where do you think we go from here, man?
Oh, I have some ideas.
I know you. I had to bring it to, the emotional intelligence guy. I had to bring it to you, man. Where can we go from here, man?
So for me, what we have to do is we have to align. First of all, we have to get people to have an understanding, right? So we were talking about sexual harassment, but sexual assault came up, right? And the reason for that is because we've come to realize, see, we used to call trauma like fear of death or loss of life or limb or something like that, but it's not like that. Trauma is physiological. It impacts your nervous system. And so repeated sexual harassment and working in a hostile environment is traumatic. And almost everyone you can think of that has been sexually assaulted was sexually harassed first. Right. And so when we recognize that's how impactful it is, that's how horrible it is. And so what we have to do is when people understand that, then we need to align our zero tolerance policies with our core values and also just with our culture. So you need to understand that if you tolerate, right? I'm not talking about the office policy. I'm not talking about the squadron, the unit, the command. I'm talking about you, the individual. If you tolerate sexual harassment in your presence, you are not living up to your service's core values. You are not living up to being a bold leader. You are contributing to this hostile workplace and the deterioration of our culture. And so when you are held responsible, then it's a different take. And when I say held responsible, I'm not talking about somebody coming to you telling you that you have to stop or you're being bad. I'm talking about you looking at yourself with integrity, holding yourself accountable. The same way, right? If you work on the flight line and you know that you didn't put the tools away, you're going to go get the tool. If you work as a cop, law enforcement, and you know that you didn't clear your gun, you're going to go clear it. That's just holding yourself accountable. That's not some big major revolutionary change. That's just you holding yourself accountable. The culture changes when you do that when it comes to sexual harassment. The culture changes when you say, if I have integrity, I will speak to my best friend and let them know that what they are doing is a crime. According to the UCMJ, it's not even my values. It's a crime. And if you have integrity, you report crimes, right? Isn't that all over the basis? See something, say something.
Yeah.
It's not a joke. It's a crime. And if you feel that, then you can hold yourself accountable to that. But we have to build that into the culture so that we call you a leader when you step up. We don't call you a snitch.
I actually have a saying for that at work. I sometimes jokingly, sometimes the airmen will like put the trash on top and it like falls over, and I'll joke and be like, be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. But that applies to this wholly. Yes. To be a part of the solution and not the problem. So not allowing it. And that's what I try to emphasize with the people that work for me. It's like, we're going to try to fix it while at our level where we can, but sometimes obviously I can't affect all the way up to Congress.
So I have a question on that, Charleston, is what about the judge who just allowed the sexual assailant to join the military instead of going into prison?
That's good.
Yeah, I was Michelle, you beat me to that. I was
sorry.
No, it's definitely fine.
My response to that is easy. That's really easy for me. The chief of staff of each of the services and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff need to stop allowing that. Simple as that. 4-star general says, okay, we're not doing that anymore. Done. Get out my face. Done.
Because I think sometimes that, I don't want to say gives the permission, because that's not the, but that's the best way I can kind of summarize it is, oh, so yeah, I'm sorry you were out here sexually assaulting women. Just join the service. That'll change you. Except we have such a high number of, like you said, the harassment that leads to the assaults, you know, and being a sexual trauma survivor myself, that's just like a slap in the face. Like, that's how little they respect my service to our country, is by bringing individuals in to serve alongside of me who I know could be capable at any time. And, you know, or on the front lines with, you know, my sisters who would be like Heather, you know, like that's awful that we allow things like that, or the higher generals allow things like that to happen.
Yeah, it's um, we've discussed some greatness and graphicness in what we're talking about today, and I don't shy away from commentary, criticism that may come by, even those that have snapped them out Wi-Fi. I don't. I don't, because I think these are conversations we had. I definitely uh, applaud Rob uh, for the journey, because it's amazing to me to see the transformation and how you come from a place of where you thought you were correct to understand that you now you want to be. You're on the journey too. I mean that is a lovely thing. Yeah, when you can own with accountability, for which are first and foremost always in view of you taking accountability. And it starts, I agree with Charleston, it starts with us, it starts with the individual, it starts with those things seen. Uh, I got this policy that I've always had, even as a young kid. Um, I didn't mind snitching. Now you say you did something around me, that I was going to say something about it. And these are the things that we have to hold accountable to those that are above us. If you see something, I mean, they're becoming campaign ads. They're becoming catchphrases. See something, say something. See a crime, report a crime. Zero tolerance. Like, when are we going to effectively take these slogans, catchphrases, campaign slogans, and actually divvy them out with some accountability to those that are leading our armed forces? Rob, you want to close in on that? And then, Jeff, I'll let you have the last say. It has been wonderful. I've enjoyed this. We're going to have to do a part two of this. Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. What you got for me, Rob? Marine?
So one, at least when I was on the streets, we kind of got rid of the whole join the service, via a crime to get out of a crime. So I know that didn't happen in my case, because I did have somebody that wanted to join a lot, and they had been suspected of rape. And I said, you got to pound sand. So that's just in my own experience. I know Charlene, she commented earlier, she's watching us, and she said it's a bunch of lip service. Well, here's another one that I can tell you. If we treat sexual assault and sexual harassment like we do hazing, I believe that there can be a change. And the reason why I say that is, well, I'm in a situation where we've changed the way that we came up, and I got in trouble for hazing. Do I agree with it? Don't agree with it? Hey, that's a debate for another time. But you've got these guys coming in at the 2-year mark, 1-year mark, and they're like, you can't knife hand me. You can't yell at me. Like, that's all wrong. And again, we could get in that debate all day if that's right or wrong. But if we start on the streets, at the recruiting office, at the depots, at these training places, and say, hey, this will not be tolerated. Here is examples of people getting busted down for it, because I would say we've increased, I don't know if we've increased punishments for hazing, but investigations have really fired up, at least in the local bases that I've been at, with these guys being trained. So it's the same thing. Get that recruiter, close the door, and have that hard discussion. Tell the female what it's supposed to be like. Tell the males to back off. And it can go both ways too, because right now we're talking about a lot of males and females. I served with a guy out in Iraq, and he came out that he was bi. And so he got to hear a lot of guys come up to him and be like, oh, so you want to mess with me? Do you like that? And all that. So, this stuff has been going on, but the difference I say over and over again, and you had me on the last podcast, my love and desire is recruiting, because I feel like that's the gateway to the military. And that's where it starts. It starts there on the streets, having those hard conversations and discussing that so that female feels empowered. When I'm hearing they got to their first duty station and that's how they got welcomed aboard, I would hope that at the recruiting station and at the basic training, they had to come in and been like, oh no, I don't know who you are, but you way out of touch, because my recruiter and my instructor said, hey, you broke this order, and I'm headed to the EO's office. Today's a new day. And I think we do that by empowering them at an earlier rank.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. And Heather touched on that when how she talked about the enforcement at her level. And that's in the military is so hard. I say that again, and not to mess the corporate with this, but some of the same stuff is going on. So it's kind of like it's a blurred line. You have so many other ways to go around it in corporate. And though you can get stuck in that, if there are more opportunities for you to address it without staying in basic contact with that one individual that's doing that. But in the military, it is so many things that work against you excelling in this, doing it that way. And I get you, Rob. I get you. Those are the solution based things that we need to delve into and to go with. But you're so much against a wall there because, and I think someone said it, but I lost the feed and they're not in my comments some more. They talked about the blurredness of the culture and how the laws and stuff is so much different in the military than in civilian, and how things can be so shaded where the laws don't even match. Like I said before, I think on a couple of shows that we had before, when I was going to punch my drill sergeant, and I was a PFC, and we had this battle because he's from St. Louis and I'm from Chicago, and people from St. Louis don't like Chicagoans, and he did me dirty a lot of the times because of that. It was personal for him, and he was a little dude, and I said I will knock you out, and he said you will go to Leavenworth. Now, if I was on the street and I hit him, I'm gonna get an assault. Maybe the cop might not even take us anywhere. Break up the fight. He send me this way, send you that way. But see, the detriment of how much you can get in trouble, how career can be ended, is so much so. Even if you go report somebody and they discharge you dishonorably, they have really messed up your life for this. Like, you can't get VA, you can't get school money, you can't get retirement, you can't get, like, it's just so deep. You know what I mean? It's so deep. Jeff, close us out, man.
I mean, I really think we got to get comfortable showing people the door. I think we really do. I think it starts with leaders of every level, like Heather has, said. But I also think it starts with getting comfortable with our recruiting system, and like Rob has said, and we got to recruit talent instead of people. We're recruiting people to fill gaps in manpower on spreadsheets, and we're not looking at quality people. And we need to take a look in the mirror, because we're kicking people out right now for refusing to take a vaccine like that.
Absolutely.
Paperwork's rolling. Why aren't we kicking people out accused of sexual assault, sexual harassment in general? If we can kick people out because they chose not to take a vaccine this damn quick, we have a fundamental moral problem. And we have to be okay with looking in the mirror and saying we have these problems. And we got to be comfortable with showing people the door. And we got to be comfortable with saying you are replaceable. We can groom the next 4-star general. We've done it before. We have a black chief of staff of the United States Air Force right now. It's doable. We don't need you if you're going to be a jerk off, if you're going to break all these rules. You're replaceable. We have to get to a point where we're okay with showing people the door and having this true zero tolerance. It's saying we can find better, because there's better out there. I've worked with them. I work with them now. I've seen tons of great people in the military and in the government. I've seen tons of great people come in. It's doable. We have to get comfortable with calling the baby ugly and showing people the door.
That's exactly what it is. Heather, you got any last say you want to leave us with?
I don't. I
What's
appreciate the
up, little man?
conversation. Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's fine. That's what. Hey, this is where we're in now. This is where we're in. This is acceptable. We meshing the personal with the professional, and we doing it now. The Zooms at home. The kids are at home. It's not an extraordinary thing anymore. It's part of the ordinary, and we must respect that. So I respect him sitting in, listening in, and hopefully he heard something that will pique his ears and to be on that watch as well, even at his age, to determine that.
Don't worry. He's being taught.
Yes, I know he is. I know with a mom like you, I know he is. I appreciate you guys so much. I know this was uh, hard to have, emotional, uh, just the gamut of a lot of things. But I think there are conversations that we need to have, and I agree with having them. But I want to move forward to some solutions. Rob, I definitely love your solutions, my brother. Get out there on the record because I still got beef. I don't even know if he's still living, but I still got beef with my recruiter who told me this lie when I told him I wanted to go into law, and he told me I'll make more money being an M1 tanker. He just drove me to that field because I got an $8,000 signing bonus in '85. Yeah, that was a lot of money, but that ain't where I wanted to be. But he gave me that load of crap to pad his numbers. So I definitely think that it begins with that core grassroots, what you're talking about, man, and keep up the good work. Michelle, I appreciate you for coming out. Appreciate your perspective, and what you've added to this discussion, this conversation, and we definitely gonna continue it on. I expect to have you ladies on for some more conversations, not on these ones, but we're gonna highlight some more issues because we just addressing the military culture, and wherever it takes us, I'm standing on where we land. It may not be positive all the time. There are some good things that we will share that the military has provided us. I know it took me from a ghetto to Germany, so it provided me some good stuff, but it also has been a detriment in a lot of ways to a lot of things that I've had to overcome. And I definitely want to cover those for everybody who's not able to have that voice or be that voice, but they're looking for us to carry on these conversations and to draw strength and courage and maybe move past what's blocking down. So I got so many things I can say, but we wrapping out of time. Charles, I'm gonna run through, have everybody tell me where they can find you at, where they connect with you at, and what you got going on. Charles, so you lead it off. Let's go.
Okay, I'm gonna shamelessly throw in a little last comment here, real quick, real quick. This is what I
Go
got.
ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Everybody who's watching, if you know someone, if anyone that you know is being sexually harassed, do they know that they can come and talk to you about it? And if you don't know the answer to that question, why not hold yourself accountable? And with that said, if you want to contact me, just you see my name, look me up on LinkedIn, connect, send me a DM, we'll have a conversation.
All right, Michelle, what you got going on, and how can they get in touch with you?
So, for myself personally, I am actually trying to light off a healing coffee house, but I'm also trying to get involved in speaking events to tell my story to help lead the next person to heal. You can also find me on LinkedIn as well, by the same name, so Michelle Keys. Um, and I look forward to connecting, talking, whatever it might lead to. Um, just DM me or friend request me. I'm all about that.
Yes, and Michelle, I'm gonna have you on my other show. Yeah, I got like 3 shows, so I'm gonna have you on my other show. Real talk. My buddy, my co-host Charlene was in the comments, and I'm definitely sure she has a lot of questions. She was excited when I was gonna do this show. She had so many questions. I was like, "This is not our show together. This is my show. Stay in your show."
I
So
was
she,
watching.
yeah, she really wants to be involved. So I want to have you on our show that me and her do as well, so we can talk about some of those things to give some exposure, some light to some of the great work and things that you're doing and what you want to get involved in, and open you up to some more networks that we are in that could definitely be a help to that. And definitely hook up with these guys, Jeff, Rob, Charleston, and Heather too. I'm gonna hook up with you as well. I know you guys are doing great things. Rob, give us what you're doing, man, and where people can find you.
Over on Instagram, it is Motivation with Spedden 2.0. Do not get excited by that name, thinking it's going to be a bunch of rah, rah, rah. It is basically a behind the scenes look of me dealing with my mental illness, being able to sit there and pick myself up from the bootstraps, coming home to an empty house and, dealing with being numb and all that, and, gearing those guys. So it brings mental health not only to military members, but I have a lot of civilians that reach out to me, and they're like, just to watch your progression. I mean, I even have a video that I'm going through a manic attack. So there is psychologists that have looked at that and said, wow, this is live. This is what you get to see. Over on LinkedIn, I'm Robert Spedden. I'm a whole bunch of things over there. I'm trying to get a job. I get out March 30th.
You got transition coming out, right? Transition.
I'm a free agent. Somebody hire this fool. And then, as I say all the time, like my closing phrase is, catch me on TikTok. How about that? I am Robert Spedden over there, and I'm trying to get our Gen Zers to match up with you guys. So, I mean, like today, if you want to say, hey, what is the benefit of what I'm doing on TikTok? All right. We've got these ladies right here, Michelle and Heather. They have gone through the ringer. Now, if I'm on TikTok and that female sees something, I can say, hey, I've got these ladies that have been there. Maybe you need to reach out to them. And so now you're able to have that impression on that 18, 19-year-old that might be able to go there. And it may just be through LinkedIn. It may not be that they're talking about sexual assault, anything else. I'm like, hey, here's some ladies that could be mentors for you. And then you guys ask that lady question. Hey, Rob brought you over. You're like 2021. What's going on in the military right now? And it's like, oh, man, I'm really glad you asked. So it's just trying to bring that next generation over and get the exposure that they deserve.
Absolutely. If you guys have not checked out Rob was 0 to 60 on our first Zoom call together. And I love it. I mean, what he brings to the table and what he's bringing to this conversation and what he's taking. And Rob, quickly, man, before I go to Jeff and Heather, who saw our last show, man? To spread the news so people will know, man.
General Petraeus. So somehow, if I can get on LinkedIn and send you a personal invite, I ain't scared. So yes. I was very surprised that he even answered. I almost kind of like had one of those like pucker effects, like, oh man, this guy was like the general when I was in OIF. Like he's gonna like slay my body. And we had a good conversation. And then I sent him the link. I was like, what's the worst thing? And he came back and he said, hey, this was some good stuff. So if you out there on LinkedIn, the worst thing you can do is tell me no for my personal invite. But like I tell everybody, no means new opportunities. So move on to the next one.
Rob's on the mission, y'all. He got General P. General P saw us, right? So we're making waves. We're making moves, and this is what it's about. We're making impact, and I'm loving it. We just only begun this fight. Jeff, let us know where we can find you, man, and what you got going on.
Man, as always, preaching the truth on leadership. You can find me, jeffclarkofficial.com. From there, you can find all the social links to include LinkedIn and, of course, the latest episode of the Course of Action podcast. Thank you, Heather and Michelle, for sharing your stories. Super motivational and powerful. I connect with both of you.
Heather, close us out, my friend. What can we?
I would like to say you saved the best for last, but
find you what you got going on.
My LinkedIn's about 9 years old, never been updated. So you've inspired me all to create my LinkedIn now.
Yes.
I am on Facebook and Instagram. That's just like my personal page. I do like some mental health topics post, mostly fitness. A lot of my terrorist children who just told me to mind my own business, which is why I was laughing. Excuse me. So I am on social media. I would love to continue the conversation with all of you. It's just Heather Gotti. I'm not quite sure how many there are out there, but yep.
Yeah, so we make sure that
LinkedIn coming soon though.
Yes, LinkedIn coming soon. We definitely got to have that with the LinkedIn coming soon. But you guys, you know where you can find me. I'm here most of the time, 3-4 shows, and I'm here 4 days a week. And if I'm not on here, here you always see me anyway, because I'm talking about vulnerability and leadership, which is the core reason why I want to address the military culture, because I think the vulnerability in the leadership begins with us. Being able to be vulnerable causes connections, connections causes changes and solutions. So once we understand who we're dealing with and why we're dealing with them, we can understand how to treat them. Though it should be elementary, you should have learned it in the parameters of your home. Everybody didn't get that training. So in the essence of that, we have to share and educate each other on where our boundaries are, so they won't affect the outcome of how we interact with each other. So find me, Carl S. Watkins one, on LinkedIn, carlshawnwatkins.com, the website. Go check out all of the great things we have. And again, appreciate every single one of you guys. And for everybody in the audience, I'm not going to even take the time to go through all the names. You guys were marvelous. And we hope General P can come and check this one out, because this will be a good one for him to check out. So we want to make sure he sees this one. Thanks a lot, guys, for all you guys do. Michelle, I'm going to holler at you and make sure we get you, because you're close to me. So we're going to have a coffee. We're going to sit down for a coffee and chat. Yes, let's do it, Michelle. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you, guys, again. We'll see you guys next week. We're here every Wednesday at 10:30 a.m., and we're going to be discussing, and as always, addressing military culture with these guests and even more that I'm trying to get on the show, so we can talk about things that affect you in the military, doing transition, or just overall, because what we talk about affects everybody. You guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next week.